broad computer. Okay, good evening, everyone. Chloe and Emily, our audience at the moment. Welcome to In Conversation with Chloe Blaney. Chloe is a Senior Solicitor at TASC in Ipswich. I'll let Chloe give you some background on what she does. Her presentation tonight is about the perks of volunteering and the art of networking, as her lovely PowerPoint presentation says. But before we get started, I would just like to do our acknowledgement of country. So I'm just going to bring that up. Okay. I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which we meet, the Gibel and Jarawar Toowoomba people. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, traditions, culture and hope of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the state. Okay, Chloe, would you like to give a brief introduction?
Sure, not a problem.
Great, okay.
Do you just want me to jump straight in?
I think so.
All
Thank
right.
you.
No problem. Okay. So hello, everyone. Emily and Francine and our virtual audience who will join us later, no doubt. Thanks very much for joining us for this presentation, which is called The Perks of Volunteering and the Art of Networking. So this is facilitated by your Student Law Society and a topic that the Law Society thought would be really beneficial for you as law students. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight and to hopefully pass on some useful tips that I've picked up along the way of my 7 odd years in law land. So I would also like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Turrbal and Yagara people who are the traditional custodians of the land in which I'm presenting from tonight. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the custodians of the lands of which you are joining us from tonight. I would like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander participants tonight that are here with us. And I also pay my respects to your elders, past, present and emerging. So as Francine said, my name is Chloe Blaney, and I am hang on a minute, technical difficulties. I'm a lawyer and I'm also a recovered law student. So I totally get where you guys are at and what's going on for you at the moment. So without boring you with my entire life story, which in case you're wondering would be aptly titled, Help Me, I'm in my 30s, I don't understand compound interest and I really love Afterpay. I thought I would take a moment to tell you a little bit about myself and probably more interestingly about my journey in the law so far. So let me take you back. April 1990, it's the Gold Coast. It's a faithful Easter Sunday and I am born and I open my eyes and look out into the world and decide I'm going to be a lawyer. That's totally not what happened at all, and that's a very different presentation. So long story short, I was born and I grew up on the Gold Coast, and then suddenly I was in high school. So at the time of my life, I was a very avid singer, dancer and actor, and I was absolutely convinced that I was going to be a famous performer in Australian musical theatre. Or study law or something. So that's where I was at. And then shockingly, when I finished school, I did not make it past the producers round of Australian Idol. So I decided that I should probably go to law school. When I went to law school, I spent probably the first 12 months not understanding what anybody was saying. So the lecturers, tutors, couldn't tell you, don't know what I heard about. And more than once, I will admit that I emailed the Faculty of Education to ask them how I could get out of my law degree and how I could get into a Bachelor of Secondary Education. Well, I guess I can say it, and given that I'm here talking to you tonight, with the help of my new uni friends and also with the great despair that none of my law subjects that I had completed would count towards that other degree, I decided to stay in law school. And then sometime around probably my third year, everything kind of started to click. And I finally started to understand some of the words that people were saying, and the law stuff got kind of interesting. When I graduated in 2012, I took about a year off and I didn't think about the law at all or about learning at all. I worked in my retail job selling bikinis, and I traveled and hung out with my friends, and that's all I did. After this, I really realized that I needed to pull my finger out, so I decided to go and do my PLT. I did that in Brisbane. And then basically, when trying to complete my 75 days work experience, I spent ages emailing law firms, government organisations, corporations, anybody who would employ a law graduate, and begged them to please give me a job. Eventually in 2014, after lots of rejection and lots of emails that went unanswered, I landed a job, my first job as a lawyer in a small commercial firm in the outskirts of Brisbane. So it was there that I actually came to realise what I was doing and what it was to be a lawyer, and learn how to lawyer. I was lucky enough to have incredible teachers in the other lawyers at that firm. And I was also exposed to many different areas of the law, including family law, civil litigation, commercial law, property, wills and estates. It was also a fantastic experience for me because, given we were such a small firm with a small amount of lawyers, I was thrown into very complex matters. Over time, I did a number of court appearances, and I did things that other juniors may not have had the opportunity to get exposed to until after being in the law for a bit more time. So it was an awesome experience, and after about 5.5 years, I decided I probably needed to try and spread my wings and take a leap. And I thought that the best thing to do was to travel 10 minutes down the road and go into the Brisbane CBD and try my hand in the big leagues. So there I took a job as an associate in a mid-sized national firm, and I practiced in commercial law, wills and estates, and property. I worked in this job for about 12 months. During this time, I worked really hard, and I think it's fair to say I worked really often. And it was also a big part of my job to engage in business development for the firm. So I spent a lot of time networking with other professionals, with clients, with referrers, and I learned a lot about business, and I also learnt a lot about myself. And it was in this job that I came to realise that private practice wasn't actually the right fit for me. Quite frankly, end of month billing gave me just crazy amounts of anxiety. And I had a pretty startling realisation that at no time during my stint in law school had I ever actually wanted to be in private practice, let alone be in private practice in a commercial firm. And somehow I'd been there in that space for about 6 years, and I was on my track for partnership. So I decided I'd really take check on what I liked about being a lawyer at that time. And what I knew is that I liked helping my clients. I liked getting a good result, and I really liked feeling like I was kind of doing good in the world. And I also realized that my most favorite part about being a lawyer was the one shift per month that I was volunteering as a lawyer at the Women's Legal Service, practicing in family law and domestic and family violence matters. I guess for some reason up until that point, I hadn't really thought, or it hadn't really dawned on me that there was another path in the law other than private practice. And specifically that I could work in community legal full-time. So here I am. I'm currently employed as a Senior Solicitor at TASC Legal and Social Justice Services. We are a fairly large community legal centre, or we're getting bigger. We service the communities in southwest Queensland. We have offices in Ipswich, Toowoomba, Roma, and Gundawindi, and we also service other areas outside there. So now I basically spend my days helping clients with their family law, domestic and family violence, civil and mental health law matters. and I do that free of charge. I've also had the privilege of supervising an amazing team of lawyers, law students, and graduates. Basically, I guess I've found my people and I've found my place in the law. And I've come to understand that there's not one kind of law job and not one kind of lawyer. So I often joke to my colleagues and to my clients and say that I'm probably one of the least lawyery lawyers they're gonna meet. And when I say that, what I mean is I'm not what I guess traditionally a society would think that a lawyer is. So maybe a proper stately professional person who speaks fluent legalese and commands a room. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because there is some amazing practitioners that do still reflect those traditional values. And while I do use my fair share of Latin from time to time, I do like to think of my lawyering style as professional, but down to earth, empathetic, warm, and with as little BS as I can possibly manage. And I don't know if I will ever be considered to be stately or command a room with my presence, but I've realized that that's actually okay. And I know I work really hard for my clients. They know that I'm listening to them and that I am trying my absolute best to get the best outcome for them. I also know that I'm giving back to the profession by teaching the people who are starting out in the law that I work with all of the things that I've learnt along the way. And given that someone much wiser and much smarter than me once said that if you're a lawyer, you need to be mindful to give back to the profession in any way you can, I intend to keep trying to do that until the day that I retire. So to give you an idea about CLCs and the work that we do, so at TASC, an average day for me looks like maybe having some client advice appointments or acting as domestic violence duty lawyer at the Ipswich Magistrates Court. Maybe I'm working on a legal task or two for a client, which might be drafting a letter of demand or a response to parenting proceedings that have been filed. I check in with my team. I make sure that I'm providing them any relevant information or training that they need, and I check in on how they're progressing with legal intake, which is basically the client's first experience with the Community Legal Centre when they're reaching out for help. I check in with my legal services manager to see what work needs to be done and if there are any decisions that we need to make for the operation of our team. And we might have a meeting with the other senior lawyers to make those decisions and work out how we can best do work for our organisation and for our communities. Also, kind of cool thing is, given my commercial background, I am able to do some in-house work for TASC. So for example, I'm currently working on a room license agreement for our premises in Roma because we've just had a lovely co-tenant join us. So it's not completely wasted skills, which is good, and I'm glad about that. So I guess overall, I work in a very rewarding job. It's a supportive work environment, and I truly do have work-life balance, which is really hard to find in the law sometimes. And I feel very content with where I'm at right now. And I'm glad I ended up here and not as a famous musical theatre performer most of the time. So now I'm going to get into the actual interesting stuff. And that's why we're here tonight. We want to learn about volunteering and we want to learn about networking. So I guess what I can tell you about that is that some of the most rewarding, educational, and enjoyable times in my career so far have been when I'm volunteering my time or when I'm attending and participating in networking events. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a long-term volunteer at the Women's Legal Service of Queensland. I first attended their office as a junior lawyer, supervising my supervisor at the law firm I worked at in around 2014. And basically, because I didn't go away, they gave me a support worker role. And then I've, over time, as I've developed my legal skills, I've come to be a volunteer lawyer there, and it's an amazing thing to do. I also regularly jump at the opportunity to get involved with community legal education, which is something that we do as a part of our work as a community legal service. I also am currently participating in the Women's Law Association of Queensland Mentor-Mentee program, which is basically me chewing the ear off a lovely young female law student I also take risks like tonight, and I volunteer to give presentations about my experiences in the law in the hopes that it might be useful or helpful to someone else who's trying to figure out their place at the moment. So with respect of networking, it is one of the most valuable and important lessons that I've learnt in the law. So you know how they say it's not what you know, it's who you know? Well, it's really true. And I mean, look, you do generally need to know stuff too, but making good connections in the law is really, really important. It's not just important for your professional development, but it's also a way that you can feel connected to your peers, normalize the hard stuff about being a lawyer, which there is hard stuff about being a lawyer, and get and receive support and education from people who understand what you're experiencing at different times in your law life. So I hope after this presentation, you might feel a bit more comfortable with the idea of networking and volunteering, that you might understand the kind of opportunities that are out there for law students and lawyers, and that you just feel a bit more confident in taking the step, which is often pretty scary, to get involved in volunteering and networking opportunities. And then you might see what these practices can mean for you in law life and just in your general life. All right, so let's start with volunteering. So what is volunteering? So Volunteering Australia defines volunteering as time willingly given for the common good and without financial gain. So that's a pretty good definition, and we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at it. So the common good encompasses many things. Simply put, it's helping people outside your household by contributing to the community and to community wellbeing. It could be directed towards a particular cause or a particular sector like animal welfare, the environment, health and wellbeing, education and training, international aid, or legal and justice. With the without financial gain part is pretty self-explanatory. You don't get paid for volunteering. You offer your time and efforts without being rewarded financially. However, the sweet loophole in all of this is that you are allowed to be rewarded in non-financial ways. And there is a lot to gain from volunteering, and we're going to come back to that in just a sec. So what do volunteers do? So the list is pretty much endless, and it largely depends on the sector and the organisation that you are volunteering for. So some examples might include helping out the organisation with administrative tasks. So that's like answering the phones, greeting people when they visit an office, photocopying and filing, that kind of thing. You might be involved in a community service that provides food services to people who are doing it tough. So maybe you are preparing and serving food to the community or helping with the cleanup. You could get involved by volunteering your time for community events. So maybe manning a stall or handing out free gifts, or maybe just being in the background and helping with the actual organisation of the event. You could be doing your part for community health and wellbeing, and that looks like a lot of things, but it could be as simple as taking some time out in your week to sit down and have conversations with people who are having a hard time. So basically, there's not one explanation of what volunteers do. A volunteer does whatever is required of them by the organisation or by the cause that they're working towards, or the people that are benefiting from it. There's no limit or bounds to what that is. And I'm going to give you a specific example. So you might have heard about Orange Sky Australia. So Orange Sky is the world's first mobile laundry service for people experiencing homelessness. And that got started here, where I am in Brisbane. It was founded by two young Aussies in 2014. And since then, it has really evolved and is now a national service offering laundry and shower facilities to people in our communities, and it's also offering the gift of good conversation. So Orange Sky is helped out by thousands of volunteers who donate their time to man the vans, do a load of washing, and sit and talk to Aussies who are living tough. So pretty cool stuff that you can get involved with. So while the world of volunteering is big and diverse, as a law student, you might be wanting to do something that can lend itself to helping you build on essential skills that you might use in your life as a lawyer or in the legal profession, or whatever path you choose after uni. So I thought I'd pick some places that you might like to try if you're thinking of dipping your toes into volunteering. So, in my second to last year of my law degree, I volunteered 1 day per week at a small law firm on the Gold Coast. I did all kinds of things, like doing the mail. It's a very sexy concept of walking down to the post office to put the mail in the mailbox. Photocopying and filing, research, administrative duties. But I also got to try my hand at helping out with some letters of advice, preparing memorandums about certain legal matters and providing them to the managing partner. And also, from time to time, I got to shadow the lawyers in client appointments. Now, on my first day, I got to drive with the managing partner to Brisbane. We were inspecting a building where there was some kind of dispute happening. The firm did a lot of sort of body corporate work. And we got to meet the very first barrister that I ever came across in my life. So when we were walking to the Chambers building, I guess I was imagining who might be waiting for us. And in my mind, this person was in a robe and a wig and had like spectacles on their nose. And the person who was actually there was a man in corduroy pants before they'd made a comeback, and a pink shirt. And it blew my mind. Honestly, it really did. So the other thing about this man was that he was extremely lovely. He shouted me a coffee and he asked me about my life with genuine interest. And it was such a fantastic day and still really sticks in my mind and is unlikely to have ever been something that I would have experienced without that work that I was doing as a volunteer. Now, law firms, I guess, might seem a little bit impenetrable. But I guess what I would suggest when you're starting out is maybe reaching out to some local boutique firms in your area and ask what you can offer to them. At the end of the day, a law firm is a business, and it's really cool when people come and do work for you in your business, particularly for free. And it also, I guess, as a benefit to you, gets you out there in the profession. You see how things work in a legal office, and you get to listen to the conversations that are being had around the office. So, next place you might like to volunteer, shameless plug time, is, as I mentioned earlier, I work in a community legal centre, or a CLC, as we call it in the biz. So long story short, the way that CLC works is that we get funding from the government and from other sources, and we use those monies to operate. We don't charge our clients to give them legal help. So I guess, as you can understand, we have to be pretty careful with our money. So it's for this reason and for many other reasons that CLCs love volunteers. Some CLCs literally run their entire operation with their volunteers, whether they are students, lawyers, and other professionals. Even the ones that don't have a lot of volunteers have volunteers. It's a big thing in our space. Given this, there are heaps of opportunities for people, particularly people who have some legal training, to get involved in a community legal centre. So some of the bigger legal centres like Caxton or Law Right have very specific law student programs which recruit during certain times in the year. Now, this is awesome because those services do some fantastic work. They have some awesome programs and they're really well versed in working with volunteers and law student volunteers specifically. The only downside, if you can really call it that, is because they're so fantastic, the opportunities fill up really quickly. So you might miss out if the program's in high demand at that current time. But never fear, because I don't know if you know, but there's actually 39 community legal centres across Queensland. So there's other little ones out there who would love for you to come and do some work with them. So if you Google Community Legal Centres Queensland, that's our national peak body here in Australia. And you can not only find a list of all the CLCs across the country, and if you're looking specifically for Queensland, for the Queensland ones, but each state has a table where it will give you a red or green light if that particular CLC is recruiting for volunteers. So it's a helpful little tool to use. For those people in Queensland, you can also check out the CLC Queensland website. So throw that into Google, which is our state peak body. And they often post news and opportunities about volunteering. So getting involved with the CLC is amazing. Speaking from someone who started out as a volunteer in a CLC and who now works as a full-time employee. Community legal centres are often at the coalface in the law. We're helping members of our community who are facing adversity, hardship and disadvantage. We also practice across multiple areas of the law, which means that you can get exposed to an array of different areas. Our volunteers do heaps of stuff, whether it's assisting with our administrative tasks, undertaking legal support work for lawyers, or manning the phones to assist our clients through the legal intake process. It could be a different thing every day. So the next place you might like to volunteer is at one of our Queensland or Australian federal courts. So if you want to get amongst the legal fraternity and also give back to the community, you might think about becoming a volunteer at the courts. So Court Network is a non-legal support service which runs out of Queensland and Victoria. The court's website advises that as a Court Network volunteer, you would help people go into court by providing support and information about going to court, be with people on their day in court and sit with them in court during their appearance, explain how the courts and legal systems operate, help explain decisions that affect people in court, facilitate access to an interpreter if required, show people around the court beforehand to familiarise them with where to go on the day, refer people to other community services that can help them with legal questions, health, housing and family violence issues, as well as other issues they are experiencing, advocate for a person's individual non-legal needs and circumstances at court. And a cool thing about it is all of the training, supervision and support is provided by Court Network. So you don't need to worry about wondering what you need to do or quickly, skill up on the court process. It's all provided to you. So the reality is, and this is my last potential option for you that I'm going to present to you tonight. The reality is that a lot of lawyers, barristers, judges, law students, all of us, we are high functioning perfectionists. And that's awesome in many ways because it often means that you're going to achieve great things and it often means you're going to be really successful in the legal world. On the other hand, as we know, people who are like that and people in law often struggle with mental ill health. And I'm pretty much here to tell you that that is totally fine and that is totally okay and that is totally normal as long as you manage that. But it is certainly very manageable. There is help available in many places and people in the profession are often willing to lend an ear. And if anything I've said right now is triggering to you, then I really encourage you to reach out to services like Lifeline or Law Care, which is through the Queensland Law Society, and I'm going to give you those details at the end of this presentation. So coming back to our volunteering space, an idea for you could be, why don't you go do something that makes you feel happy? It's, finding something that's going to give you the good feels. So the RSPCA, for example, has around 5,500 volunteers and they cover a variety of roles in their organisation. I happen to know a friend who is a lawyer and on the weekends she volunteers her time to go and walk and play with the dogs. That's actually what she does there as a volunteer. So I guess why not find something, and it might not be puppies, but find something that you really like and makes you feel really good. And spend your time volunteering there. So I guess the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is, what do good volunteers look like? So volunteers, like people, come in all different shapes and sizes, and that's really great because it means that everybody is offering really unique things to the organisations they're with and also to the people that they're serving. In saying this, there are commonalities between people which I think make them good volunteers. So I'm going to tell you what to me is a good volunteer. So somebody who is reliable, as I mentioned, particularly with charitable organisations, we're pretty often low on funds. So what that means is we really do heavily rely on our volunteer base. So if a volunteer doesn't turn up for a shift or they cancel last minute continually, this does put a lot of strain on the service and the service's ability to deliver to the community. Volunteers are often compassionate and non-judgmental. So if you are getting involved in a community space, have awareness about the people that you're interacting with during your volunteering. That could also be, being in a law firm and dealing with people who are, going through family law matters or domestic and family violence matters or a criminal matter or a particular civil matter that is really stressful and upsetting to them. It's about understanding people and being kind and compassionate and non-judgmental. Francine, that'll be those fireworks. Sorry, guys. Brisbane's won the Olympic bid. Exciting.
And Chloe, isn't it right on the money? Look at that. 16.
Right on the money. They do not waste any time.
No.
Okay.
Yay.
Very exciting. We interrupt the regular broadcasting. Okay.
Yes.
So back to this. Okay, so volunteers are often socially conscious, particularly if you're getting out and about and helping some of those community organisations. Volunteers are punctual, so it's respectful no matter where you're working or no matter who you're helping, to make sure that you get there on time. It shows respect to those people. It's great to be open and honest. It's great to be trustworthy. We love our volunteers to be driven, so good volunteers want to work and fulfil the role that they've been asked to do. It's really awesome when volunteers are willing to learn and also willing to follow direction. All about volunteers giving suggestions about how we could, do better. That's 100% welcomed, I know, certainly for me. But just remember that the organisations and the businesses that you might be volunteering with have probably got long established policies and systems in place for a reason. So just be open to that and willing to learn, because you can learn some awesome things. It's awesome if you're flexible. So for example, you might think that, yes, today I'm going to shadow a lawyer and it's going to be fantastic because I've been doing filing all week. But then unfortunately somebody calls in sick and so you're asked to man the phones. It's really appreciated of volunteers if they can be flexible and understanding to the needs of the organisation. All right, so I promised you the perks. So I'm going to give them to you. So here are the perks as I see it. So the perks of volunteering are that you meet cool, like-minded humans. So that could be the other volunteers that you're with, the employees of the business or the organisation that you're volunteering at, and just the people that you're interacting with and you're serving. You're learning new skills. I've written there telephone skills, which is hilarious because I know as a junior lawyer, one of the things that I was the most afraid of was calling people on the phone. So it's just cool to be doing that, early on, so you can get used to it and you can build a bit of confidence. I say build confidence as a separate point because I think that's really important, and you definitely build confidence by speaking to clients and other professionals. That's the only way you generally do it. So it's good to get in early and start building those things. You get to make a difference and you get to do good, which is really nice. Gives you the warm and fuzzies. It looks really good on a resume, and that is real life. I can tell you right now that I mainly got an interview for my job, and my boss will shamelessly tell me this because I was a volunteer at Women's Legal. I can tell you from when I am recruiting or when we are recruiting at TASC, people who are volunteering or who have volunteered end up making their way to the top of the pile of people to interview. So it's definitely something that's going to help you when you're trying to get employed. It's a try before you buy thing. So for example, if you've got a particular interest in an area and you go and volunteer, it's figuring out whether you actually do like that. It's also maybe if you're like me and you think private practice isn't for you and you maybe think CLCs could be an option, it's figuring out whether that is what you like. Maybe it's figuring out if you want to be in a law firm and seeing what that's like. Just trying out a bunch of different paths before you actually have to commit. And it also could lead to employment and other awesome opportunities. So for example, as I said, I, worked at Women's. That led me to getting my job at TASC, but it can also be getting tapped on the shoulder as a volunteer. If a permanent position comes up, you might be the right fit and they already know all about you. So it could lead to paid employment. You also might get to pat dogs, which is pretty cool. I think that's a perk. You might not think it's a perk, but look, I think we can safely say, if you don't like dogs, you're a crazy person. Okay, so where to find opportunities. So there's heaps of places. If you Google literally volunteering opportunities for law students, so much stuff comes up. So have a look. Subscribe to newsletters that are relevant. So maybe it's community legal centres, Queensland newsletter, maybe it's the Queensland Law Society, Proctor. There could be a number of different things, but get around them because often opportunities are advertised there. There is literally Seek Volunteer, which is Seek if you want to be a volunteer. Ethical Jobs, which is Seek if you are wanting to work in the community space. And they do put volunteering opportunities on there as well. There's a site called Go Volunteer, which really helpfully lists all of the current volunteering opportunities in Australia. Very handy. CLC website. So if you are wanting to come and join us in CLC land, check out the specific websites because they'll often ask for volunteers there. Maybe it's through university, so through the uni or through your law society, they often have their finger on the pulse, so they know what opportunities are coming up. Through social media, I for one am currently very impressed with the Queensland Law Society social media. If you don't follow them on Instagram, you should, because they've got lots of useful things, and I definitely would recommend having a look at that. Just picking up the telephone or sending someone an email can do a lot of really good things. So if you've got a law firm down the road from you and you think you might want to try and volunteer, ring them up, ask them, can I come in and do anything for you, please? Or send an email and ask if they have any work experience or volunteering opportunities available. You could also do a pop-in. So if you're in the area, you might just swing in and introduce yourself and offer your services. And I guess the last thing to find volunteering opportunities is networking, which is a lovely segue into part 2 of what we really want to talk about, which is networking. So networking. So from my understanding and from speaking to some current law students, networking is simply put terrifying and awkward. So here's a secret. A lot of lawyers are also terrified of networking, and that's all right. It can be scary and awkward and uncomfortable. That's super normal to feel like that, and it does get easier. And I am speaking as a potentially the most awkward human. But here it is. It's really important. And because of that, we're going to break this down together. We're going to chat about some tips and tricks to hopefully make it a bit easier. And hopefully you'll start to see that there is a bit of an art to it, and that once you get the hang of it, really good things can come of it. So what is networking? So networking is the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. Basically, it's connecting with people. Not just people who you reckon are pretty cool and would be fun to hang out with, although that's sometimes a perk, but also finding people who might have some knowledge or professional skills, or just be a generally good connection for your future career. So why is it so important? So as I've already told you, the old saying about it's not what you know, it's who you know is actually really true. In professional services like law, that could not be more true. Firstly, the law as a profession prides itself on being collegiate. What that means is even when we're on opposing sides of matters, we are working alongside each other. For this and for many reasons, we get together quite a bit. So whether that's at like industry events or just catching up one-on-one for a coffee, lawyers really like to talk to each other. So it's just something that we really like to do, and it happens a lot. Secondly, networking can be really beneficial and often mutually beneficial. So in private practice, for example, referral relationships are pretty common. So what that means is a lawyer might refer their clients to a particular professional, say an accountant for accounting services, and then that accountant, from their developed relationship with the lawyer, might refer their clients back to the lawyer for legal work. So it's pretty handy in business. It's not all about work winning though. Networking can expose you to people who you find inspiring, who are going through the same experiences as you, or who end up being a mentor to you or offering you something in the future. So where can we network? Well, you can network at CPD events. So CPD is continuing professional development, and if you decide to get admitted as a lawyer, you will need to do 10 hours of CPD every single year to maintain your practicing certificate. I am a big nerd, so I think that's really cool because you get to listen to some really interesting presentations and be forever learning, because that's what it is in the law. You're forever learning. But basically, at a CPD event, it might be about a particular area of the law. So generally speaking, everyone who's there has the same interests as you or practices in the same areas of the law as you do. So they might be people that you particularly want to chat to. Queensland Law Society and law societies in other states, wherever you are. So at Law Society events, you get to meet people from the profession who are at all different stages of their law life. So they could be junior, senior practitioners, Law Society counsellors, members of the judiciary and other law students. Hot tip, if you are not a Queensland Law Society member, and I'm sure the other law societies are much the same, you can join as a student for $10. You get access to all kinds of useful resources, and you get cheaper tickets to the events. So absolutely join yesterday if you're not already a member. So LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is essentially networking at your fingertips in the comfort of your own home in your pajamas. You can create a whole brand on LinkedIn. You can post relevant articles, share relevant articles, connect with like-minded people, meet your idols, follow interesting people, and stay in touch with the people that you meet in real life. It's really a big thing in 2021 to have a LinkedIn. Hot tip, make sure that you're posting stuff on your LinkedIn that you're okay with professional employers reading, because I will tell you now that we check it. So just make sure that you're happy with what's on there, because people are going to see it. Uni events. So at uni events, you get to interact with your peers, your teachers, and often professionals. Now, I guess uni networking is often quite a cost-effective way to network. Usually the prices are aimed at law students or students. So the other thing, I guess, that's quite good about it is it's often happening at uni. So it's a space that you already feel pretty comfortable in, and you might already know a few of the people. So it's a good little starter for networking. District Law Association events. So they are everywhere. For example, I work in Ipswich. So the Ipswich District Law Association just sent out a bunch of correspondence. They have been busy. So there's a lunch meeting, a half-yearly CPD event, and also a Christmas party that they've just invited us all to. You get to mix and mingle with local practitioners, so practitioners in your area, and get to know people. It's a really good space. Again, they have cheap tickets for students, so check it out. There's also like other associations. So for example, the Women's Law Association of Queensland, or the Family Law Practitioners Association. So there's a bunch for all different areas of the law, for all different groups. And that's pretty cool because you can tailor your interactions to be with professionals and individuals who like the same thing or practice in the same area of law, or who you identify with. So there's always specific networking events offered by those associations, and also CPD events. They also run cool programs, as I was mentioning earlier, with the WLAQ. They currently have a mentoring program in place where you can connect one-on-one with a professional, or in a small group. So it might be a little bit more manageable for starting out in networking. The other thing I'll just make an honourable mention of is young lawyers events. So young lawyers events are pretty fun. They are often held in great locations or like doing activities like mini golf and going on a yacht and all these things. It's pretty cool. You get to mix with young lawyers, but you also often get to mix with other young professionals. The Law Society might do a combo with, young chartered accountants or something. So it's there that you can start to build up your own network with people who are also up and coming in their respective professions. So you're building, your own network. It's a pretty cool thing to do. So who do we network with? So we can network with other students, whether at our institution or at other institutions. We can network with academics. So academics are usually very smart and very kind and generally very much willing to give you some of their time. So they're good people to try and network with. Then there's obviously the legal profession. So lawyers, barristers, members of the judiciary, they can give you an idea about future career paths, areas of the law that you might like to practice in or learn about, and you can also make good connections for the future. So business development managers are pretty common in professional services, and they are starting to become more common, I think, in law firms. So basically their entire job is to network and to build connections and win work. So they are really good at networking. So if you ever meet one of those people or get the opportunity to have a coffee with them, they're already really good at networking and they will often drive the conversation. So you need to do less, which is helpful. And I guess other professionals. So depending on where you are, what space you're in, that might be accountants, counsellors, financial planners. The list is literally endless, but it's good to interact with people who are not just lawyers. As much as we really like each other, there are other professions out there and we can learn a lot from them. I know, for example, TASC is a multidisciplinary service. So we work with advocates and social workers who are our colleagues, and they can offer things that I absolutely cannot to our clients, and that makes our service all the better. And they also teach me stuff, which is really good. Alrighty, so tips and tricks, because as we've talked about, it's uncomfortable and it's terrifying. So hopefully some of this will help a little bit. So I've said dress to impress. Now, what I mean here is not necessarily that you have to go get a tux or something or like be rocking up in tails everywhere. What I mean though is there might be situations where you do have to wear a suit or, chinos and a jacket or a dress and a jacket or something, whatever you've got. There might be situations where that is appropriate dress. So for example, I would suggest that Queensland Law Society events, young lawyers events, professional associations, if you want to feel like you're going to blend in, you probably want to dress in like a suit or in corporate wear. However, in saying that, if you were to go to an event like, for example, a community legal centre event, dress is going to be a little bit more casual. So just try and figure out, who you're going to be around. But I will tell you that probably never okay to wear like boardies in a singlet. Just try and keep it professional if you can. Smile. So look like you're happy and that you want to be there. You want to look friendly and approachable because you want people to talk to you. You don't want to stand there and be sad in the corner. You want people to approach you, and you want people to be not terrified when you approach them. So smile. Find a tribe or go with a tribe. So get a group of mates and go. But if you do that, you got to mingle. You cannot stand in a group and just like hold together. I understand that might be really comfortable and also, make you feel okay and safe, but you need to try and get out there and just talk to like one other person at least. In saying that, people on their own are gold at a networking event. So if you see someone who is there and they don't have anyone with them, super, they want to talk to someone. Just remember they're probably as scared and as anxious as you are. So go talk to them, or if you're in a group, get them to come into your group. They will be so grateful to you, and you don't even know who it's going to be. It could be someone that you make a really great connection with. So understand your audience. So if you are going to go to an event and it is an industry specific event, or it's a lawyer's event, or it's, a family lawyer's event, kind of understand what you're there for and what they might be there for and what they might be interested in, and what you might be able to learn from them. So just be a little bit prepared, depending on where you're going. So have some icebreakers ready. So it could be, and I know it sounds lame, but like any social occasion, talk to someone about the weather, about the food, about the venue, the association that is hosting the event. These are okay. You should practice some of them in your head. But in saying that, please make sure that you have a follow-up, because you don't want to drop an icebreaker like, the weather's so cool, yeah, great, and then it's just awkward silence, because that's going to make you feel awful. So have a second liner, have a follow-up, and I'm going to encourage you to maybe think of a spiel. Now my spiel, and what I mean by this is have something that I can say to people, not all at once, like I'm just throwing words at them, but just, as naturally as I possibly can. So to give you an example, my spiel would be, hi, my name's Chloe. I'm a lawyer in a community legal centre. I practice mainly in family law, civil and DV. I'm really hoping to finish my master's within the next 2 years, because I'm hoping that will lead to a job in legal education down the track. That's okay. Just have something, an introduction of yourself to share. Now, this is possibly one of my most important tips and tricks. Be mindful of the refreshments. And I mean this as kindly as I can, because at networking events, particularly law ones, you got to be mindful of free pouring, not eating, and also being really nervous, because often that will lead people to want to indulge in some liquid courage. And while it's okay to have a glass of wine or a couple of glasses of wine or whatever it is, you don't want to go too far the other way, because that's not where you want to be. I would encourage you to drink water. You also don't have to drink, so don't think that you absolutely have to. My tip and trick is not make sure you get on the sauce. That's not it at all. But if you're not going to drink, because often there will be events with alcohol, maybe get a soda water so you look like you got something fancy going on. The last thing that I just want to say, and I think it's really important, is when you're networking or at the end of a chat, ask someone for a business card. Have you got a business card, or ask them if they have LinkedIn so you can connect with them. And then I would encourage you that once you've done that you follow up. If you meet someone that you particularly vibe with or you found was particularly interesting, follow it up with a LinkedIn message or an email if they don't have LinkedIn, the next day or within the next week, just to keep that connection going and to start potentially building something up. So the message or email would literally be as simple as, hi blank, great to meet you at the blank event last night. I really enjoyed speaking to you about blank. I would love to chat more to you about blank, and the potential volunteering opportunity that you mentioned to me. Would you like to have a coffee this week to discuss? Cheers. That can be as simple as that. And often people will go for a coffee with you, even if it's a one coffee thing. That's pretty normal in the professional space. So give it a go. So I guess the thing is, overall, the only way to feel more comfortable about volunteering and networking is just to give it a go. So I guess you got to risk it for the biscuit. You never know what else you're going to get out of it. What I've told you tonight is absolutely not a complete list of the perks or all the tips and tricks. But if you take nothing else away, just take this from tonight. So I promise you that there are perks in volunteering. I am living proof of that. And that while networking may be an art, it does lead to things. And that's actually how I'm here with you tonight. So it is good. So thank you for listening to me tonight or for tuning in. I really appreciate it. As I mentioned, I've just listed here the phone numbers for Lifeline and also Law Care. So that's available for Queensland Law Society members, should you need someone to chat to. And just take care of yourselves and take care of each other, and keep polishing those skills. Thanks so much.
Chloe, thank you. That was a fabulous presentation. So thorough, and I loved the practical tips about networking. They were classic. Really so helpful. I mean, it is an art, and any advice is so welcomed. Yeah, I find it so difficult, and I think all of those things are just so helpful. So thank you so much for your time.
No problem, my pleasure.
And Emily, I think, has asked a few questions in the chat. So,
oh yeah, great. Hi, Emily.
Emily, would you like to ask your questions that you've put in the chat? No? Can I ask the one about, do you think that many law firms would accept a volunteer that is disabled? Chloe?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I absolutely think that is the case. I can tell you now, obviously I've worked in 2 law firms, and I can tell you now that both of those law firms would be more than happy to have someone working with them who lives with disability. I can tell you 1,000% that a community legal centre would love that, because a lot of our clients are living with disability. That's the people that we're serving. So can 100% tell you that we would love that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Chloe. That's that's okay for you, Emily, if you just nod?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. I was just thinking too, Chloe, when you were talking about where to network, I remember that one girl that I know who's doing accounting, she actually found that going to a sport, a community sport, she met other professionals, and that just opened up other doors for her as well. So and as someone who doesn't really get into group sports that much, I think that was a pretty good tip. I mean, it's fun and you meet people. Yeah, that's
the thing. Like, you could literally meet someone anywhere. Like,
that's
you
right.
could literally go to a barbecue at your mate's house, and there could be a professional there.
Just being curious. Hey.
Yeah, it just depends, and it's just about, you know, asking the right questions, engaging in conversation, and I guess being confident enough to go outside your comfort zone, and you know, meet new people, because you never know who you're going to meet. But you're quite right, going to a sport is really fun. And like those I mentioned those young lawyers events, they often do like mini golf or bowling or something. That's a really good icebreaker, because you're doing an activity, and quite often if you're as coordinated as myself, it's going to be fun and funny, and you're kind of like, you know, having a good time and laughing at yourself and, you know, being a bit hopeless and whatever, but it kind of does really break down those barriers of speaking to people that you wouldn't otherwise feel super comfortable to speak to. So yeah, there's all kinds of things out there that you can do.
Yes, it certainly takes the pressure off when you've got, you know, you can throw a ball around and
that's right.
Yeah.
It's distraction.
It sure is. Yeah. Thanks so much, Chloe. I think we're at 6:58, and you have just covered so much in this talk. So we'll be posting this recording in the Law Society, USQ Law Society website, and hopefully people will reach out to you too.
Yeah, more than happy. I love a chat. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or, you know, reach out to me at TASC in Ipswich. But yeah, look, LinkedIn's probably the easiest. If you do have a question, or, you know, more than happy to chat, because I get it. I've been there. I've been where you guys are. I totally understand. And, you know, while I'm, you know, relatively still new in the profession, 7 years isn't particularly a long time, even though it feels like forever. I'm more than happy to share what I know and what I've learned, because it is a bit of, you know, learn stuff as you go, a bit of trial and error, but more than happy to chat.
Thank you so much, Chloe. And thank you, Emily, for coming along tonight.
Thanks,
Great
Emily.
to meet you.
It's actually a bit of a shame for something that's literally labelled networking. But
I know.
we used it.
It is a shame, isn't it? But I guess people have got other things on. So
Yeah, it's dinner time. People are
hopefully,
hungry.
yeah,
Maybe they're all at the fireworks celebrating the.
possibly, yeah.
It was very quick, and there was a lot of them though.
What was it? Oh well, we've got river fire later on, haven't we? I suppose that's the
Yeah,
main
I
event.
suppose if we COVID pending, but yes.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Thanks again. And
My pleasure.
hopefully speak
Thanks
to you
for having
soon.
me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye. Thanks again, Chloe.